All right, Rob, welcome to workshop 1G and the assessment and the guys have to do for 1G. And just before we start this assessment, when I created this, it was all about really giving our students and our athletes the understanding of, customer service and like making sure that you're anticipating your client's needs and working towards your client. And the scenario that I gave in this assessment is something that I dealt with a lot when I was a fitness professional. So that's why I really wanted to give them that experience of what it would be like and how they should deal with it. So, in this workshop specifically as well, we're looking at the way that you would deal with things. So it's not, when we go through this today, that's only one way you can deal with it. But this question is really, trying to get the student, the athlete to work out how they would deal with it. So just, when we go through stuff today, that's not the be all and end all and the right answer. If they've got other ideas, it's really important that they can put those on the page too and not just, regurgitate what we're saying. So we'll give you one point of view, but there are definitely, more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to customer service and dealing with client needs. So let's get into it today. So our client today, his name's Mick. He's a 58-year-old male, and he's come to you, or he's inquired about becoming a member at a gym, the gym that you work at. And so what we have to do is we want to put Mick through a initial consultation to get him as a member of the gym, do some fitness testing. So Mick feels like he's welcome. He feels like we're looking after him and kind of making sure that we're matching his program to his goals. So that's who Mick is, and that's who we're trying to work around. So the first question here is after reading all Mick's paperwork, but we have to kind of book him in for an initial consultation. So after reading Mick's paperwork, you've noticed that Mick indicated that he hasn't participated in any exercise for the last 10 years. And his main reason is to start training is to build his strength and cardiovascular fitness so he can have more energy to play with his grandkids. So knowing this information, anticipate Mick's preferences, needs and expectations regarding fitness services to best suit Mick. So what are your thoughts around this, Rob?
Yeah, so looking at Mick's needs and expectations here, the first thing we need to look at is his age and the fact that he hasn't exercised for 10 years, So we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is an age-appropriate exercise program. So it might not be exercises that you do as an athlete, as a 20-year-old, It might be something that's a little bit more appropriate for a 58-year-old person, okay? Also, we want to make sure that we understand what his goals are. His goals are he wants to improve his cardiovascular fitness. He wants to improve his muscular strength. He wants to play with his grandchildren. That's just like we call everyday living activities. So we want to make sure that our training is focused on those three areas, fitness, strength, and improving those activities of daily living. I think what Mick needs are easy to follow sessions. He's 58. He hasn't been in a gym much before. It's been 10 years. Doesn't need to be complicated. It needs to be low impact exercise. He's a little bit older, hasn't exercised. His joints might not be so great. So you might start him on, machine weights. You might start him on the exercise bike, just to kind of get him back into sort of a generalized fitness program, okay? The other thing that I think might be interesting and useful for Mick is at an older age group that maybe some circuit style training, maybe some group training with people of the same age is really good for Mick, because he might find a little community of people within the gym that he can work with. We used to run a lot of, in all the gyms I've run over the years, we used to run a lot of senior circuit sessions and sort of older adult sessions. And they used to love it because they'd all come, they'd all have a cup of coffee afterwards, and they created a real community and they stayed committed to each other. So they'd come in week after week. So that might be useful for Mick as well. And then the last thing is obviously he needs a fitness appraisal and he needs to be screened. Okay. So before we give him any programming, we need to make sure we check his risk factors. We do some basic fitness testing. And so that we have all the information that we need to write in the right program.
Awesome. And how important is, to treat everyone as an individual. Don't over anticipate someone's needs and expectations. You really do have to sit down with them and understand who they are as an individual and do those fitness testing and those screenings so that, we are designing programs specifically for that individual.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because, there isn't a cookie cutter program for everybody, and especially at his age, he's going to have some different needs than maybe even another 58-year-old person who's been exercising their whole life, right? So there's going to be different needs. We need to screen them and assess them, and then we need to make sure whatever we're doing for them is very specific to their needs, because then they'll go, okay, this is something I can do. This is something that's written for me. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to get results. I'm going to keep coming.
Fantastic. All right, next question is just outline the steps that you would take to book in Mick for his initial consultation. So again, there's more than one way to do this, but for you, Rob, what are your steps that you take when you're booking in clients for the first time?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do is obviously we create that initial contact. Either he phones up, he emails, or maybe he just walks in the gym, okay? The first thing that I would do, you know, for example, if he walked into the gym, I'd be showing him around the gym, but while I'm doing that is I'm asking him a lot of open-ended questions about what he's trying to achieve. So I need to understand Mick before I can understand what sort of program he needs, what sort of trainer he might need as well. So I'm asking Mick a lot of open-ended questions. Mick, have you been in a gym before? Tell me your past experiences with the gym. What sort of things have you done in the past? What do you like doing? What do you not like doing? What are your goals? You know, how many times a week are you planning on coming there? You know, hundreds of different open-ended questions just to get him talking. Because the more he talks, the more you understand sort of what he's looking for. As I'm getting that information off him, I'm explaining some of the benefits. Okay, you said, you know, you really wanted to improve your fitness. Well, we've got a cardio area here with bikes and treadmills and rowing machines and cross trainers. There's lots of variety of different types of equipment you can use to improve your fitness level. So I'm explaining the benefits of the gym or the program or even the specific trainer that I might refer him to. I'm explaining those benefits specific to him. Then at the end, you know, hopefully I've got him. He's like, this sounds great. I've told you what I want. You've told me how this is going to work. Then let's arrange a time for that initial consultation. Okay. So I won't let him leave without booking something in. I think that's really important because you want to get their motivation when it's going. Don't let him, oh, I'll think about it and I'll call you back. There's a very good chance they won't call you back. Book them in on the same day, you know. Booking him using whatever system software with the appropriate trainer that's best suited to Mick. So if you've got a trainer that might be a little bit older or might be experienced with the older adults, you go, oh, Mick would be really good with, you know, with Debbie or whoever, right? So you can book him in with them. And then what I would do is in your software or in your system is I would confirm that session 24 hours beforehand by just a phone call or a text, just to remind them, hey, you've got your initial session booked in on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you then. So that's the process that I would take.
And man, and I 100% agree with that point 4 there. You have to make sure you get a commitment from them before you hang up the phone or before they leave the gym. Because if you don't, the likelihood that you'll get that commitment later on is quite low. So to making sure you get that commitment before they move on, it means you've locked them in to get them back. And, you know, the more touch points you have with them, the more time they come back, the more likely they're going to stay on long term. So that's a real key one. Thanks for sharing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so next question we're going to go here because this does happen a lot. So, you know, after trying to contact Mick, you left a voicemail, you introduced yourself, you explain the reason why you're calling, then you receive a message from Mick, which asks if you could call him back at 5 o'clock. So how would you respond to this message to ensure that you're meeting, the client's needs and request in a professional manner?
Yes, we talked about being timely with this before as well. So obviously if something like this comes in, you want to be responding as quickly as you possibly can. As you can see, because he texted you, I would use the same medium. So I'd be texting him back. I wouldn't be calling him back. Obviously, he wants to be called after 5. But what I would do is make sure I'm very specific in that text message. So as you can see, the example that I would say would be something like, and again, you can put your own answer in here. Not a problem. I'll ring you at 5:15 for a 10-minute chat where we can discuss your goals and book in for your initial assessment. So what I'm doing there is I'm giving you a specific time. I'm going to tell you how long it's going to take, how much of your time I need, and I'm going to give you a reason for calling and what's going to happen at the end. Okay, so you've got to give those 3. Don't just say, yep, great, I'll call you back after 5, right? Because you might not get to them until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So specific time, the length of the call, and then the reason for calling. So at 5:15, he knows, okay, we're going to have a 10-minute phone call, and at the end, I'm going to be booked in for my first session. So I think it's very important that you're specific with what you're looking for there, and then book that phone call in your system and diary, right? So at 5:15, 10 minutes beforehand, you get a ping on your phone, call Mick, 5:15. Yep.
Mate, that's awesome, mate. I cannot agree with you more. Having those specific things in there about, when you're going to call, the length of the call is so important, and then the reason, really key, mate. So yeah, that's, great way to kind of respond to that. All right. So after organising your initial consultation with Mick, you receive a message from Mick asking if you can change the day of the consultation from a Monday to a Wednesday. So again, outlining the steps that you would take to, when you receive this message, to make sure that, the client's satisfied, but it's not interrupting you too much, and that, you're adequately adjusting your service towards that client.
Yep. So again, another short message response here in the same format, which is, if you got a message, if it was an email, you reply back on an email. If it was a text, you reply back by text. What I always say is I'll say, sure thing, let me check my calendar and get back to you. So because he's trying to reschedule, I also need to make sure that it's at a time that works for me as well, because I can't be throwing my whole schedule completely off track just because he's trying to rebook. So what I'll do is I'll try and push him into a time that works for me. So I'll say, for example, I have an appointment spot available at 1 p.m. Can I put you in there? So usually, because he's the one rescheduling, it's kind of the onus is on him to try and make that time work. Okay. You might be able to negotiate. You might say, look, 1's not great. Do you have anything around 3 o'clock? And you might say, okay, I have 3:30, but again, it's kind of the onus needs to be on him to try and make that appointment. So I'll always give a little bit of time. I'll check my diary. I'll find a spot that works for me and I'll try and fit him in there. And then I'll alter the booking to the new time. And then I'll just put a note in there as well saying this was rescheduled from Monday. Because what happens is if you start getting clients that reschedule 3, 4, 5 times, then you start to realize that might not be the type of client that's going to turn up anyway. So.
Fantastic. All right. So question 3. So before commencing the fitness appraisal with Mick, clarify to him, the reason why we need to do a fitness appraisal, and explain how you would, seek consent to kind of continue the appraisal. So be sure you address your answer to Mick as if you were talking to him personally. So how would you deal with this question?
Yeah, so I'm not going to give you guys the answer to this question because this needs to be something that you need to write. So it needs to sound like it's coming from you, which I think is really important here. Okay, so your answer here should be like conversational tone, as if you're talking to me or if you're talking to Mick. Be 1 or 2 paragraphs long, and would ideally include, you want to give in there information on the reason why the fitness appraisal is important, so we get a really good understanding of your current status. And we can write a program that suits your needs, how the results influence the programming. If I do a fitness test, I can see where you're at. I can write a program basic, if you're a beginner, if you're at a beginner level, if you're at an advanced level, whatever. And also how you're going to track his progress after beginning the program. So you might include there, Mick, we're going to be tracking this program every 8 weeks. Every 8 weeks, we'll do a new fitness test and we'll write you a new program so you stay committed and you keep progressing. Okay. And then at the end, I would just make sure we seek his consent. I go, does this all sound appropriate to you? Does this all sound okay to you? Okay, great. Let's get started.
So the reason why I put this question in the assessment, man, I do know, from my experience working with older clients, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. They want to know everything. They want to know why they have to do everything. And we need to make sure that, we're anticipating that before and answering that question before they ask, because they're going to ask that question anyway. So that's why it's really important to, before you do anything, to really explain, especially to older clients, what they're doing, why it's important, how it's going to help with, with their program, with their training, how long it's going to go for, so that, they understand, I guess, what they're getting themselves into before they get into it. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's really important, especially for older adult clients. I think it's with any client really, as a fitness professional, you understand the what. We understand what we're going to do. What the most important thing we need to get across to our clients is why we're doing it. The client doesn't really care what they do. It's all just why. Why does it benefit me? Why is this specific program going to get me results? How does it work in that way, right? So we want to always be giving them the why, the reason why things work, okay? So it's like, don't just tell them what they're going to do, but tell them why it's going to benefit them, okay? So, and yeah, you're totally right, Leon. With older adult clients, they want to know everything. They want to know, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? So again, answering those whys are vital.
Yeah. So this next question, my question 4, again, I wanted to throw a bit of a spin into it. And so this question here, I'll just read it out. So after clarifying the stimuli of the fitness appraisal with Mick, he actually questions the necessity of doing a fitness appraisal, and kind of argues that his fitness level is very low. He knows that it's low. So why am I doing a fitness test? Because I know it's so low. I know my strength is low. That's why I'm here. I want to build my strength. So, how would you deal with this conflict when a client doesn't want to do it? Maybe because they're a bit embarrassed, haven't trained for so long. He doesn't want to, know how bad he is. So how would you deal with this? Because, this is something that does arise and could occur, especially in a male. I feel like, our egos as men, especially as we get older, we don't want that to be jeopardized. So, hey, how would you deal with this?
Yeah, I've heard this so many times before. It's basically, I don't need a fitness test to tell me how bad I am. Like I've heard that 100 times, right? So what we need to do is, that's a barrier, right, for them participating in exercise. Is, yeah, you're right, a little bit of ego, but also just a lack of understanding of why the process is so important. Okay, so hopefully in the first question you've really nailed that, and he doesn't question it. But if he does, we need to convey in your answer to Mick, the best thing about doing a fitness test is we can lower the level of the testing to suit your needs. So we still get a really good idea of where you're at, even if you're an absolute beginner. I always argue that if you're an absolute beginner, that's even more important to get a level of fitness, because we can really see the progress, right? So because for him, it's going to be really motivating seeing him go from a low fitness level to like a moderate fitness level, okay? So we can talk about that. We can talk about how it's tailored to suit his low level of fitness, how we can substitute the fitness assessment to best suit him. So, okay, look, for some people, we usually do like a 12-minute Cooper test, which is like a running test. But for you, we're going to do a 6-minute walking test, which is something you can easily achieve. And then in the last point, just stress the importance of understanding. We need to know what your base level of fitness and strength is so that we can clear him for exercise and give him the right feedback and the right program to suit his needs. So you just need to double down on the whys here. Just keep doubling down. This is why it's important. This is why it's important.
I couldn't agree more, man. I think that last dot point that you said there is definitely the one that I would not stress the most. It's like we need to understand their base first before we can kind of build on that. So, the client might feel like they've got a really low level of fitness, but we need to know how low. And that's why we need to do that fitness testing first. So thanks for sharing. All right, so question 5, after completing the initial consultation with Mick, he books in for his first session with you. Discuss how you would provide professional and personal service to ensure a quality experience for Mick.
I remember the very first time I did a fitness assessment on a client, I was really nervous because the first time I was in a room one-on-one with a client for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. So it really helps to be prepared and understand what it is you're going to do each step of the way. If you go in there unprepared, not on time, unplanned, it's going to be a nightmare. Okay. So the first thing we need to do with Mick is we need to confirm the session, contact him 24 hours prior to remind him of the session. So he's booked in. We know that he's coming. Okay. Be on time and prepared, ready to begin before he gets there. That goes without saying. If your session's at 3 o'clock, you should be ready to go before 3 o'clock. The room should be clean, which you're doing it. You've got all your paperwork, everything's organized, everything's ready to go so that it looks professional right from the start. And for you as a trainer, you're creating a system that you do every single time, right? Because as you do these over and over again, they become secondhand. You want to do the same thing. You want to have a consistency. Explain in detail how the first session is going to proceed. So when they get in there, explain all the steps that we're going to do, how long it's going to take, ask him if he has any questions before he begins, okay? And then as he's going through this training session or his first fitness appraisal, his first whatever, we're constantly asking for feedback. So we're constantly going, how did you feel that exercise? Do you feel like that was too heavy? Do you feel like that was too light? Was that too hard? Another thing that I always ask is, the intensity. So I'm like, hey, how hard was that on a scale of 1 to 10? For his first session, you go, oh, that felt like it was about an 8 or a 9. I might back off a little bit. You typically want to sort of underdo the client the first session, just having them leave feeling really good, right? Because that's really important. If we focus on having the client leaving feeling great, then they're going to keep coming back over and over. We don't need to flog Mick. He's 58. He hasn't trained in 10 years. Okay. What's really important is to monitor for signs and symptoms throughout the session. So we're constantly looking, okay, am I pushing him too hard? Is his heart rate up too high? Is he too red? Is he too sweaty? Is he too short of breath? If so, I need to change it. I need to bring things back down. And then the last one, which is vital, is after the first session, give a follow-up phone call within 1 to 2 days. How did you, Mick, how was it? How are you feeling today? You might be a little bit sore. Hope you're feeling great. What did you like? What did you dislike? How are you feeling? You're ready for our next session. Our next session is booked in Monday at 4 p.m. We're going to be focusing on X, Y, Z. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you've got some sort of follow-up component there as well.
And I can't stress enough with this question, guys. What you see on the screen is not, you can't just copy that in dot points and get the answer. So you need to start putting this in your own words. And again, it says discuss how you would provide professional service. So that's, Rob just went over how he would do it. Now, obviously, we want you to grab some stuff from that and put it in your answer, but we do want you to come up with your own, kind of idea as well and put into your own words. Don't just, copy and paste what's on the screen. Okay, and then moving on to question 6 is throughout Mick's first session, how would you communicate? How would you use, communicational techniques that encourage and support Mick? So, Rob, again, it's really important, especially for Mick. He's a 58-year-old male. It's something new to him. He's getting back into training and exercise. Probably hasn't got a lot of confidence in it. So, how important is communication and a positive communication? How important is that when training Mick and getting him to buy into what you're trying to achieve? All right, mate. So just moving on to question 6 now. We're looking at throughout Mick's first session, how would you use communication techniques that encourage and support Mick? Now, obviously, this is going to be really important. Mick's new to training. He's an older client. So we really need to make sure that, he's enjoying training. He feels like, he's achieving something. So how can we use communication to do that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways in which you could do this. The first thing I'll be looking at are what sort of verbal feedback points am I giving him? Am I being positive with my verbal feedback? Am I saying, good job, great work, keep it up, excellent stuff, all that sort of stuff. Just keeping it positive throughout the entire first session. Non-verbal is your body language, okay? So how are you communicating through your body language? Are you doing thumbs up? Are you showing that you're excited, that you're happy? Is your body language and your energy level matching mix? I think that's really important, okay? Confirming understanding is really important. So when you give him an exercise example, you want to be like, does that make sense? Do you understand that? Do you understand how we're doing it? Making sure that you're confirming that he gets it, that he understands it is vital as well, because that means he'll do it correctly, he'll use the right technique, and he'll get the most out of the exercise. The last one is positive feedback example. So, just like I said before, like, you're doing a great job, awesome stuff. How did that feel? Keep up the energy. All those sorts of things I think are great. And the last thing is the arousal level matching. So if Mick is a high energy, high arousal, pumped up person, you want to create that same energy with him, okay? But if Mick is a really quiet, relaxed, laid back, sort of lower energy person, you don't want to be the pumped up high energy guy, because he won't really click and connect with you. You want to bring your energy levels down. You want to talk a little bit quieter. You want to slow yourself down a little bit. So you want to match his arousal level. If he's high energy, you want to be high energy. If he's low energy, you want to be low energy. I think those two things are really important.
And, and that might change in between sessions too. Like, one day a client might come in and they're really high energy, and then one day they might come in they're really low. So understanding to match that and mirror that depending on how the client is on that day is really important. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because it does change every single time. The client might start a little bit more reserved, a little bit more low energy at first, but then from there, as you get to know them more, their true colors come out. They become a little bit more high energy. So that's definitely something that you'll find.
All right. So next question, mate. So when explaining exercise to Mick for the first time, it's important that we encourage Mick to ask questions. How can we achieve this? What are your thoughts?
So we start by asking open-ended questions ourselves. So we're asking questions to Mick that don't just ask him to require him to say yes or no. Mick, what are your exercise likes? What sort of things do you like to do in the gym is much better than saying, do you like boxing? Because do you like boxing is a yes or no answer. Whereas what types of exercises do you like in the gym allows him to open up and speak a little bit more. The other thing with trainers, we do this all the time, is we talk too much. Okay. We're trying to give so much information. We overload people, especially early on. So talk less and listen more. Give space for Mick to ask questions. Don't just be blab, 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 blab. Don't just dominate the conversation, saying 80 to 90% of everything. A lot of trainers do that. So you want to try and stop yourself, slow down a little bit. It's okay if there's some silent points, because it'll give Mick a little bit of time to ask things. Then another one is, again, like I said before, we're focusing on feel. Asking him, how does the exercise feel? Which muscles do you feel it in? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Those sorts of questions are really important, because we need to connect with him on how it's feeling more than anything else. And then the last one, just like before, confirming we understand. Do you understand what we're going to do? We're going to go into the squat now. Yep. Do you get it? All right, let's go. Let's move on.
And I think too, just to add to that, I think, creating an environment for the client to ask the question, I always make sure before, after explaining something, before they start exercising or doing the movement, I would say, look, before we start, Rob, like, or Mick, do you have any questions? Like, do you understand? Do you have any questions that you want to ask? By asking that question, it helps the client to encourage them to ask questions too.
Most definitely. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so with that next question, mate, how would you respond to Mick if he asked the following questions when we're explaining a seated squat? So the first one is, why is this exercise important and how will it help me? Again, you're going to get these questions. We want to anticipate them before they come. So how would you answer that first one?
Yeah, so again, what he's looking for here is the why. So he's like, why is this exercise important? So we give him the specifics here. Okay, we're going to do a squat. It's a lower body strength exercise. It's also a functional strength exercise. So for example, it's the same as getting in and out of a chair. Okay, so that's why we've got that sort of everyday functionality to this exercise. We're going to strengthen our quads, our glutes, and our hamstrings, and it's a very safe beginner movement for us to do, so we can really focus on creating good technique before we do things a little bit more advanced. So that's 4 things that you could say there. Even if you just say 2 of those, in the conversation, you'd be giving him a lot of information that he can go forward with.
And that second question there, mate, it's why we're using a box to sit on when we're starting off with a squat. So how would you answer that?
Yeah, this gets a little bit more technical into the actual delivery of the exercise. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get him to understand good squatting position. So we're trying to cue the body to sit back into the movement, to making sure the muscles in the posterior chain are working. So those muscles like the quads, the hamstrings, and the glutes. So really driving those hips back allows us to really get that correct activation of muscles. Also, the box helps us to control the depth. So we can have a higher box when he starts, and then we can move the box lower and lower and lower, and then we can eventually take the box away once he shows good technique. So box squats are great because we're really cueing the good technique all the way through the range of motion, and we can easily just make the box lower and lower. And then as another progression, we can add weight. Once he shows that he can do a full squat to depth with good range of motion and no technical issues, we can start loading him up. He might hold a dumbbell or a kettlebell or something like that. So it's an easy spot for us to progress from.
And with this question, guys, when you're answering it, we want you to answer it as if you're talking to Mick. So use language and conversation language as if you're answering this question as if Mick was right in front of you. That's how we want this question to be answered. All right, and now moving on to our last question for this workshop assessment. How would you maintain records of services that you provide to Mick? And I guess with this, with your response to this one, Rob, why is it important to maintain records? We did touch on this before in a previous workshop, but it'd be great to understand, why it is so important as a fitness professional to make sure that we are maintaining records of our clients.
Yeah, so there's 2 basic reasons. The first one is from a legal liability sort of perspective. We want to make sure that we're keeping copies of all of his contracts, all of his screening forms, just in case something happens. If he gets injured, there's a claim, we need to make sure we have all those records on file. So from a legal liability perspective, that's very important. But then secondly, just from be able to give him and show him progress. We want to be able to show him, hey, look, these are the types of exercises we were doing in week 1. Now we're at week 8. Look at these types of exercises. Look at these weights. Look at these, rep ranges or whatever that we're doing. Okay, so there's those 2 basic reasons. And how we do that depends on what you're using. So if you're using some sort of client management software, you'll be keeping notes on there with your clients. If you're using an iPad or a tablet or a phone or some sort of, sort of software, you can do that. Keeping copies of all the text messages and emails, that's really important just in case there's some sort of, conflict, or, you guys are going back and forth about something, you can say, as per my previous email, I said this. So just making sure you got copies of all that, that's important. If you are old school analog vibes, if you're doing notepad sort of stuff, if you're writing things down, make sure that you're scanning that and keeping it on a computer or some sort of tablet. You basically want to make sure that it is digital at some point. And then all that information is stored online in a cloud-based software. So there's less chance of losing records. You can access it from multiple devices. So, it might be an app that you can access it from your computer and from your phone and from your iPad, so that you don't lose that information.
Awesome, mate. All right, guys. So that is that workshop assessment done. So, again, with all our assessments, just make sure you're putting it into your own words, and that you're, answering the question, not writing too much or too less. You're just writing, enough to answer the question. So again, as I always say, if you need our help, we're always here to help. But going through what we spoke to today, you should be on the right track to getting this assessment completed to the level that we need. So enjoy it, guys, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again, Rob, for your time.
No worries, guys. All the best.